Yeah, right.
Thank you, Ryan. Good evening again. It's 6:13. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole to order with roll call, please.
Walrath?
Here.
Weinhammer?
Here.
Stefani?
Here.
Collier?
Here.
Dudek?
Here.
McAlpine?
Here.
Would you please join me again in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving to public comments, the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. I had nobody sign in. Anybody here would like to address the Committee of the Whole? Go ahead and close that at 6:14. We have one item this evening to discuss a discussion regarding potential amendments to the village's regulations for video gaming terminals for craft brewer liquor license holders.
Thank you, Mayor.
Brian?
Yep. The discussion this evening is just to discuss a potential possible change to our code for video gaming terminals. As the board recall, the village has had video gaming operations in the village for approximately 10 years now. The state passed the act in 2009, and the village followed suit a few years thereafter to allow gaming locally. In the mid or late 2000 teens, if you will, the village did pass regulations specifically towards video gaming cafes, which the regulations are currently shown on the slide. Essentially, the village board had a desire or regulation to not allow gaming cafes in the community. The desire was for gaming to be more of an accessory use to a restaurant operation. So the board did not want gaming terminals to be the primary focus of an establishment, and we came up with the regulations as shown here. One of the main provisions of those requirements was the operation of a commercial kitchen on the property, and the provision or providing of food in the establishment. So we've had various inquiries that have come in the recent past that have had inquiries for establishments that did not provide food, that we've advised that the board has not supported those uses in the past, and the applications were not submitted. However, we did have an inquiry from an existing business who is here this evening as well, that is potentially seeking gaming terminals for their operation. We thought that it was warranted of an additional discussion before the board based on the operation of that business and the type of business it is, from a standpoint that they do produce products on the property. They don't have a kitchen operation specifically, but they do produce alcohol on the establishment through their craft license with the Village of Cary. The next slide here is the Spirit Water has approached the village. Although they do not provide food at their establishment, they did provide some information as far as the number of clientele that they do have, which visit their establishment that do receive food from other establishments, either in the Village of Cary or surrounding area. And also, they do provide certain, throughout the summer months, we'll have food trucks on site as well that will provide food for their customers, but they don't actually produce anything specific on the site. So this is approximately a week's worth of activity that they observed in their establishment, the type of businesses where food was brought into their establishment for by their customers, or then different days if you see multiple numbers. There's Jimmy John's example that one day 3 individuals had it, and another day 2 other individuals had it. So multiple days, some businesses had food brought into the establishment. Next slide here.
So is Spirit Water, or like to get this data, is Spirit Water ordering the food for them to gather this data, or people just ordering it on DoorDash? Like, where did they get this information?
The information was provided. We basically asked the establishment to observe where food was being brought in the establishment, so the business did not order it for them.
Okay,
Essentially, the customers that they had in their business location brought the food in from that standpoint, and they just kept track of the type of food that was being brought in and where it was from.
okay, so, and then I'm just trying to understand this again. So, then where it says Domino's Pizza, it says 9,4. Does that mean 9 people ate Domino's Pizza on one day and 4 ate it on another?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, over the 7-day period, rather than having the business listed there twice, I just grouped the numbers together.
thank you.
Looking at the type of establishment, basically within our liquor code, we do have provisions for endorsements on liquor licenses. And specifically, we allow establishments that have a craft production endorsement to be able to produce alcohol at their business location that they can then sell or provide at their establishment. And this is the section of the code within our liquor ordinance that speaks towards that endorsement as far as what would be allowed. So essentially, establishments that produce beer, wine, or spirits would be able to have this endorsement, provided they have the proper state and federal licensing required for their business. And then they could hold the license with the Village of Cary and produce those products for the sale on their property as well. The next slide gives information as far as state licensing that allows for the manufacturing of alcohol. And this slide is just provided to speak to the existing establishments that we do have. There's 2 that currently produce products at their establishments. There's different license types that the state issues depending on the operation of the business. So in the case of Spirit Water, they have a craft distiller license and brewing license combined for the location, because they do produce both spirits and beer products at their establishment. And then the Ale House is more of a brew pub operation. They have a Class 3 brewer's license for their establishment. And based on as you can see with the brewer's license, there's different limitations as far as how much those businesses can produce under their licenses. Likewise with the first and second class winemakers, which we don't have any in town, there are limitations on the volume of alcohol that they can produce at their establishments. So the item for discussion is if the board would consider these type of businesses to have a different, not directly fitting under the gaming cafe category, from a standpoint that they are producing items on the property other than food, not having a full commercial kitchen, to have a discussion to see if it is warranted to have specific regulations for a business that may have a craft grower license endorsement through the Village of Cary. And if so, these are basically 5 additional conditions that the village or staff would recommend possibly being placed in these establishments. And essentially, the first would be that they have a craft production endorsement on their liquor license from the Village of Cary. The second would be that they have the applicable state license to produce and manufacture alcohol through the state of Illinois. And then the third and fourth would be related to the actual physical location of the establishment. And these basically would establish that the business would be a minimum of 3,000 square feet in size, would have at least 1,500 square feet of space devoted to the manufacturing of alcohol products, and then another 1,500 square feet dedicated to the sale and consumption of alcohol on the premises, in addition to the other requirements that we had against the gaming cafes, so the 10-to-1 seating requirement and whatnot. And then the fifth condition would be to potentially establish a minimum for the amount of alcohol that they would have to produce at the premises. I have that currently highlighted at 12,000, which is about 1,000 gallons a month. For an establishment, equates to roughly 65 kegs from a monthly standpoint. And just to see if that is something that the board would want to establish from a standpoint of allowing these businesses to have gaming if they don't have a full commercial kitchen, with the contingency that they then produce alcohol at the location. For point of clarification, these requirements would allow Spirit Water in their current location to comply. They have roughly 5,000 square feet of total square footage in their establishment. About 2,300 is devoted to their tap room. Another 2,700 is devoted to their manufacturing area. The ale house would not comply with these requirements, as their brewing area is roughly 700 square feet. However, since they do have a commercial kitchen, they would not need to comply with these requirements because they would comply with the other regulations as operating a restaurant in the establishment. So this would speak more towards a business that is specifically in the business of producing alcohol and providing a tap room or tasting room at the establishment. If they didn't have a full kitchen, they would have higher requirements than what the ale house probably currently has in their location. The owner of Spirit Water's here as well, if he can answer any additional questions that the board may have, but I'll be happy to answer your questions you may have for discussion purposes.
Just a point of clarification during our initial meeting with the business owner. Could you just state for the record and for everybody to hear that this has to be manufactured on site? It couldn't be a neighboring community that has a brewery that wants to set up a shop and sell their product here and then allow gaming. It has to be actually physically manufactured within the establishment.
Correct. So yeah, that's staff's proposal would be that the business has an endorsement from the village to produce at this location, and that also that the product they would have a minimum gallons that they would produce at that location as well. For a Class 3 brewer's license, what the ale house has, they have limitations as far as how much they can produce on an annual basis, but they also have limitations on how much they can sell from another Class 3 brewer's license standpoint. So the requirement here would be to basically establish a minimum to say that this establishment has to produce a product in this location in order to have video gaming terminals without a commercial kitchen.
Any questions? Tim, would you like to come up? Will you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, I'm Tim Kovac, brewmaster, master distiller, and also owner of Spirit Water.
Did you have a particular?
I just thought maybe you wanted something to say to us. I wanted to hear from you before we started chatting in case you had anything you wanted to say to us.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me here today. One of the things is we've been in business for now 5 years, and I try to support everything in this community. You know, it doesn't matter if it's a veterans event or anything like that, birthday parties, you name it, right? And the whole thing is I'm supporting all the restaurants in this town because I don't have a kitchen. And the other thing is we pull people from other states, other countries, and they come here. Just today, a person came all the way on the train to here to Cary and then had a bike and rode it over to our place from Chicago. Over the weekend, there was people from Florida and bought products and everything else like that. And one of the biggest things that they've all said, why don't you have gambling? You know, we would stay here longer if you had, you know, a little gambling. Because, you know, they want to be there, they want to eat, they eat there, but then they want to do a little bit something different. A lot of the times they'll play board games, sometimes they watch TV, you know, and such like that. But they always say, why don't you have gambling? And for the last 5 years, we've pretty much said, we're not going to do this. But it's different times now, you know. Be honest with you, when we first opened up from 11 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, we were slammed every day until COVID hit. And we've gone through some rough times. I'm not going to lie, you know. The state also asked for us to make hand sanitizer. So we made it for all the prisons and all the hospitals. You know, we made anywhere on average between 300 to 600 gallons a day just for the state of Illinois, you know. So the whole point came around is like, you know what, it would benefit the village and to keep people here longer. And I don't want to go after 11 o'clock. I never want to do that because nothing good happens after 11 o'clock. I swear it doesn't. I've been in this business way too long, you know, and I've seen a lot of other restaurants and bars that after 11 o'clock, You know, I'm sure you have enough statistics after 11 o'clock, how many, you know, people getting arrested, there's DUIs or anything like that. You know, I don't mind opening up earlier, giving out coffee, you know, for free even, just to help people do things, right? And gamble at a little bit. They're not going to be here and sitting there for hours and hours and doing it. It's just a little bit. Hey, you know, you got a little extra money, great, go ahead and do it. That's all. If it benefits the people here in town, then so be it.
Well, the owner's up. Does anybody have any direct questions for him?
Mine's not a question per se, it's just a comment. Sure. Ready for comments. So I want to thank you for being, you know, in the village of Cary and doing business here. So we're grateful to have you here. And from my perspective, I think that we always want to make sure that we're working well with business owners. And I feel similar to, I think, what Trustee Dudek has been consistent with saying is that, well, at least for Trustee Dudek, he's not in favor of gaming. And I'm not in favor of gaming as gaming parlors, but to help established businesses in our community and having what Brian created in this documentation, or unless Courtney did it. This is something that I like to see, you know, how we can help people but not bring in gaming cafes. Mm-hmm. So at least from like what I see here, I like being able to help you guys be successful from this perspective.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Trustee McAlpine?
Sure. I would agree with that sentiment that, you know, you're a great business partner for the village. As you said, you're also helping other businesses, other restaurants. I have been to your establishment. You do a lot of fun things in the summer. You have bags out there. You have other things where people are going. It's hopping when you have those food trucks there. People really enjoy it. To me, it's not a gaming cafe, and I think distinguishing this is my biggest issue. We don't want to open it up that all of a sudden someone else is going to be able to come to us and say, well, I want to do this, and how can I do this? So I appreciate the time that was taken to craft this, to say, how do we set this up so that we are not going to allow for a gaming cafe? That's something that we've been very consistent with what our vision is for this type of thing. I'm absolutely in support of you adding this to your, as something as value added for your business. So,
thank you very much.
Trustee Walworth?
I had a question for staff about the production levels. Would it be a potential rewrite or an opportunity to basically just align this, because this may be specific to one particular type of alcohol production or another, specifically align it with the state guidelines and some sort of language that basically says as long as you fall within the correct production levels for your classification type issued by the state, then you could be granted this. Basically giving ourselves a barrier of somebody who gets their license, produces that, makes more money gaming, and basically doesn't produce any alcohol anymore. So tying what the state is already requiring for that license back to our ordinance here.
Yeah, I think that's where condition 5, that's why I have it highlighted, is to be determined still as far as what that value is, because each license type, you know, if it's go back to the,
Can you go back to that
the brewer's licenses, you know, an example.
Right.
There's different criteria depending on what they produce and their maximum levels. So the issue that, you know, we've seen kind of in the industry from a gaming cafe perspective is that there are establishments that have obtained a local license for a liquor license to operate a gaming cafe, but they actually don't provide any alcohol at their establishment. So they pay for the licensing because the gaming, you know, itself is profitable enough that they don't want to have the insurance or whatnot from that standpoint to serve the alcohol.
Right. And one of the concerns I had with that specific, being very specific, and I know you highlighted it, but I would want to get that wording right because, you know, 12,000 gallons either a month or a year, whichever it was, of beer versus wine versus hard alcohol. Those are dramatically different items, particularly on the production side. So we might have to be careful with the wording on there to make sure that we're open to future businesses and not trying to cater this just specifically for one business.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's where, I mean, Mr. Kovac can probably give more information that it exceeds 12,000 probably considerably as far as the volume that they produce at his establishment. But I understand that trying to set that parameter at a point that it's attainable for a business that's producing it, but the square footage requirements in themselves will probably eliminate the gaming cafe scenario they're usually under 2,000 square foot space. So if that alone could kick it up, but it's something I can still look at before we come back to the board with the final version to get better numbers.
So, okay, so what he's asking and saying is, if he fell, I know he doesn't, but if he fell below that limits, would you lose your gaming license or suspend? How would that work?
Yeah, so from a code perspective, we have provisions in the code currently for establishments that provide alcohol sales that they have to provide a report on an annual basis for the amount of food versus alcohol sales they have. Because within our code, there's different requirements for a restaurant versus a bar, from a zoning perspective.
Right.
So if the establishment was not producing alcohol at their location and we had an established limit, then that would give the village an ability to not renew a license if they're not producing that alcohol. So if they've received a license, they have a craft brewer license from the village to produce something, but then are not actually producing anything at that location, it gives us the ability to say you're no longer operating that craft operation.
Right, I'm not saying he would do it, I'm just saying
Correct.
what Rick was kind of
Yeah,
saying,
I
where somebody
agree
can
with what Rick was
come in and be like, okay, I'm gonna do this for 6 months, and then gaming's
Right.
making me a lot more money, but I'm definitely in favor of it, so, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yep.
So one of the things is, if you guys remember, I have 47 different tap handles. Right, it's probably one of the largest, in probably McHenry County.
Yeah.
Right, and as well as I have over 50 SKUs of hard liquor. So I'm the first brewery and first distillery in the state of Illinois under one roof. So I have to produce a lot. Right, and at the same time, we have another 50 SKUs of hard liquor waiting to come out. So I'm always going to be doing this, So one of the things that is kind of great, if you ever drink, Not Your Father's root beer or even Not Your Father's bourbon back in the day in 2015, 2016, I'm always creating something new for you guys, okay? And it's kind of like the Willy Wonka place, right? So.
Trustee Dudek.
I didn't know we monitored the production, so that's new to me. I just didn't know. Good to know that. I will tell you that I am in favor of what you're doing. 15 years ago almost, I wasn't a big fan of video gaming. But things change, and the community has to change along with it. I have to change along with it. So I think you have a beautiful place. I've gone a couple of times when you've had food trucks there that I happen to like. I don't eat fish, so if you get fish guy, I won't be there.
Just saying.
Just saying. But pierogies are okay. But no, I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Trustee Stefani.
I had the same question as Rick, so that was answered. I'm in favor of this 100%. So I don't even know why we're talking about it.
Well,
I get it.
It's when we first had this conversation, we're like, how do we delineate this and be fair to everybody that comes in? We do have a lot of gaming parlor requests all the time, still all the time, and we're saying no, you've got to meet our requirements. So one of the things that we set out to do is to make sure that we are really pigeonholing a gaming license for the breweries and the production on site. The 3,000 square feet is much larger than a video gaming facility would have, and they would have to have the production. So kudos to Brian for putting this all together. When we had a very information session a few weeks ago with the owner asking if this is something we would consider, and I said, yeah, if we package this right and we make sure that we have our I's dotted and our T's crossed when it comes to what we already allow, with our restaurants, and that's been very successful. I could proudly say that there's a lot of municipalities that emulate our policies when it comes to this and our ordinances. So, it's tried and true, and I think this is a great opportunity to help an existing business. I mean, if you go back, can you go back to that slide with all the food vendors and things, please? Almost all of these places are within our corporate boundaries, and he is essentially supporting us. And It's a fun, it's a novel place to go. People enjoy it. He does great work with the community. So I think this is a good thing. This is why we decided we should go to bat for him. So I think we have a consensus that we would allow for this. Did you have another question?
Yeah, I do. This is more of a comment than anything else. You know, you're located out of where whatever action we have in downtown is. How can we help you? How can we bring people out to, you know, the far side of town? I know we have some development going on, but any thoughts to help you?
Well, you know, one of the things they used to do in Wakanda is they would do kind of like bar hopping, right? And I don't know why, you know, we don't do a bar hopping really. You know, and one of the things, how we used to do it in Wakanda was everyone got a 5-ounce glass when they came in, right? They would get a T-shirt, and you checked off each place they got, or you got a clip, you know, for each one of those things. That could be helpful, you know. So I know that when we tried to do something like this last year, you know, no one followed the rules a little bit. And so I don't mind being part of the committees. I'll do whatever you guys want me to do. You know, I was asked to try to, when we have this event coming up this spring and summer, you know, I said, yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this. I have no problem. Just ask me, and I'll be more than happy to do things for you guys. And I don't mind collaborating with you on other ideas to try to get more people from other towns even in here. So.
He does the beer fest that the Rotary puts on. He participates
Well,
in it,
and
too.
this is something too that, you know, we can work in collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce for some of these types of things, to talk with them and see, because you're right, you know, a lot of communities have the little pub crawls and the this and that. So I think last year was the first year they tried it, so you kind of have to learn and evolve and pivot, right? We've all learned that. So I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, because I'm sure that we're happy to share that with the Chamber as well.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, one of the things I noticed about that last event was that there was only so many tickets, and that's it. And at one time, they was told that you can go online as long as you had your receipt, you could still be part of it. Well, that didn't happen, because then once that website closed, that was it. And so, yeah, the ribbon thing kind of would work. You know, T-shirts things would work. You have to plan a lot of things in advance, right? So I'll do whatever I got to do.
Yeah, I wanted to add the recent partnership that we have here at the Village with Naturally McHenry County. They're doing a lot of efforts to promote the craft beverage trail that they have, which I'm happy to hear Spirit Water is a part of. So that is another opportunity to get the word out. But I agree, there could be other things that we can look at to help promote all of our businesses that way.
That'd be great.
And I just want to apologize to Trustee Dudek. I didn't mean to speak on your behalf, and you did surprise me on your answer. But
I was against it. I'm perfectly
it's
honest.
okay.
Here.
I apologize for misspeaking for you.
No apologies necessary.
Thank you. So everybody agree we put this on the next consent agenda?
Yes.
Moving forward. So you got your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to discuss about this? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 6:41.